Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince. We have Ian, and our special guest is Rick Fenoglio. Rick, can you just say hello? Oh, perfect. Yeah, we got you. Great.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, great. So, Rick, really excited to have you today. We're going to talk about the
Thank you.
4v4 study that you did quite a while ago, and then maybe we can talk about kind of the results of that a little bit later. But just so everyone on the other end knows, Rick is a football scientist and coach educator at Manchester Met, but he grew up in the Midwest, in the Midwest, as I say. But Rick, thank you so much for coming on, and appreciate your time. You are right now in England, and so I know it's a time difference there. It's probably dinner time. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, I've just finished dinner. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I watch your show every week, once or twice, and I really appreciate the invitation. Yes, I grew up in Rockford, Illinois. That's where I started playing soccer before I moved to Tennessee, where in high school at that time there was absolutely no soccer at all. It's certainly changed. But yes, I've lived in England for over 30 years, mainly as an academic or a sports scientist. But my love since whenever has been to work in football, soccer. And so we'll talk about some of that today and how to get into the business and what we learned from this this pilot study, which took place 17 years ago. And I can't believe, it's been that long. And again, I thank you because you guys sent me down a memory lane path. So I was looking over all my notes and stuff like that and some great memories and a highly influential program, really. And we'll talk about how the evolution of it and what we found kind of wove its way into the formats for youth football pretty much across the globe, really. And not that was down to this particular one study, because the evolution of small-sided games has been going on for decades. But we'll talk about all that. But first, what I wanted to do is just give you 6 or 7 slides about the program for those of you who don't know really what we're discussing. If you can go back one, that's fine. Next one. Do you want me to do it? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. You are all set. Thank you.
Okay. So in 2001 and 2002, the coaches at Man United had taken some of their older, when I say older, I mean under 10s, 11s, 12s, whatever, over to the continent in Spain and France. And pretty much they noticed that the skill levels of the players over there were a bit higher than they were at Manchester United. So to their credit, they went back to well, it wasn't Carrington because Carrington hadn't been built at that time. They went back to the Cliff, Littleton Road, and sat down and said, what are we going to do about this? And they basically tore up the playbook and started completely from scratch all over again. And so they thought about how did the best players learn to play, amazing football or amazing soccer. Well, they didn't do it on pristine pitches. They didn't do it in academies. They did it on the streets. They did it on the beaches. They did it on the barrios. They did it in the neighborhoods. And then when they looked to the Premier League formats that they were having to play, which was 8v8 every Saturday, they thought, can we improve this, basically? So they developed this pilot scheme. And again, I'm not expecting you to read that small print, but it basically says that they petitioned the Premier League to be able to play a series of 4v4 games instead of a single 8v8 game for their under-9 academy season. And it was a pilot scheme in 2002, 2003. And the names of the people there, Tony Whelan, Rene, Phil Brogan, Eamon, Mike, and Tom, were the main instigators and promoters of and this is really important, not only of small-sided game 4v4 formats, but the ethos and the philosophy at which those games are played in. That's what I think is the most valuable thing about the pilot scheme. Next, we have... Okay, format. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. The program was adaptable, so if 75 players showed up from Newcastle United they could just create another 4v4 pitch so that everybody could play. Teams are divided into teams of 4, and if there were subs, they came on a rotational basis, so everybody played nearly every game. The games were 8 minutes, and no scores were held, and there were no referees. Right when Manchester United said we're not going to use referees, everybody in the world said you can't do this. You know, you get Liverpool under 9s over here, and the parents, and you get Man United. No referees, you're mad. And within the first 30 minutes, the players just got on with it.
Yeah,
they picked them. You know, they just wanted to play. The playing time was shorter, and there was a 2-minute rest in between breaks. Now, this is really important, which we'll go into a bit more detail. The role of the staff was there to monitor and supervise with almost no coaching. Okay, so only positive reinforcement. Parents were kept far away. The parents were kept roped off. They didn't want the parents to be significant others, influence the kids. They wanted to keep the playing environment an optimal learning environment. Simple as that. And that meant getting the parents to just, please be quiet. You're not the coach. We are the coaches. We're not going to coach either, but we don't want you to try to do it. Okay, so there was limited access for significant others. The study, again, there's another story in here that the way I actually got into Manchester United was in 1998, 99. I walked past our department's administrative office, and I saw Brian Kidd in there talking to our secretary, who was obviously Sir Alex's right-hand man for a number of years. So we put together a proposal to provide sports science support to the club. This is when sports science and football really didn't mix, especially in the UK, and we didn't get anywhere with it. So after 2 years of waiting, I sent the current academy director, Les Kershaw, a list of 100 sports science ideas for the Manchester United Academy. And I got a phone call a couple of days later from Tony Whelan, who's become a really good friend. And he said, come on down, we'll talk about some of these projects. So I did some projects, and then they said, we have this pilot scheme, and we would like some research done on it. So we did qualitative and quantitative research. We took cameras down to, I think it was 8 games at United and filmed the players, and then in the 4v4 formats. And then we would follow them to Bury or to Wolves or to Stoke and film the 8v8 games. So that's the important thing, is that none of the other clubs were doing the 4v4. So the Manchester United coaches were trying to make an environment where the kids would duplicate what was happening in the playground or in the streets, and they would try new skills. There's no pressure, have fun, try to nutmeg people, take risks, and just get on with playing and learning. So the 4 games that the United program installed was line ball, no goals. The object was to stop the ball on the line. So that game was supposed to improve dribbling ability. 2-goal game. You notice there are no nets, and the parents were like, "Are you? These." The parents would come, drive up from Tottenham, from London up to Manchester, and then the kids get out and there's no nets, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? Is this Manchester United?" And so they really were taking some risks, I guess. So the 2-goal game, it wouldn't count if the ball was above the cone. So it was basically trying to improve passing the ball into the nets. Last 2, 4-goal game. Again, these are very common training games that we use, all the time. 4-goal game, try to get players to look up, switch play. 2 goals. They could go to that corner or to the corner over here. And finally, there was the goalkeeper's game, designed to improve shooting. So fairly small pitch, but large goals. So shoot. Where do you think all the parents lined up to watch? Not in any of the other ones. They were all lined up against they wanted to see the net bulge and have their FA Cup final every Saturday. so that was it. That was the main differences. And like I said, this is important for small-sided game research and for training, but also the philosophy of what they put into practice was quite creative and quite unheard of at the time.
Mm-hmm.
To cut the long story short, before we get back to discussing my research and my team's research, we looked at the qualitative interview side about what everybody thought about it, and the quantitative side, which was basically counting. This is not high-level inferential statistical analysis. This was about watching the films, getting someone to validate what you saw, and just tallying. So that's what we found. On average 4v4, as you now would expect. But at the time, no one had actually gotten some hard data, not much. And people love data. So this study, even though it wasn't published, it was published in Insight in the FA Coaches magazine. And this study has followed me around forever in the nicest possible way.
Yes. Yeah.
So lessons learned. So let me get off the.
Want me to stop it? I'll stop it here.
Yes, please. Let's stop.
Yep, I got it.
Okay. So that's what it was. That's what it was. And a couple of things that really jump. I mean, you guys chip in at any time, please, about what you thought of it and about some of the issues it brings up. Well, there's quite a few for me, and we took these from the Manchester United scheme into the grassroots game in the UK through the campaign called "Give Us Back Our Game," and this was trying to wrestle the game back for the kids, wrestle it from the adults, basically, and free the kids up to play, taking a lot of the philosophy from the United scheme. That's the one. One of the I guess we can start anywhere, but one of the things that really jumps out is the importance of the environment. Trying to make it simple, coaching is about two things: what you have the players do and the environment they do it in. Okay, so if the environment isn't suitable or optimal for learning, and you can go to any match on a Saturday, any kids game, and you'll see less than optimal learning environments. But it's vital, to really let players have, take risks, gain confidence, make mistakes, all the things we talk about all the time. But this is kind of the first example of that. The second thing to take away is the role of the coach. Now, this causes quite a lot of stir when I talk about this at coaching seminars and stuff. The coaches have lots of different tools in their arsenal, and the one they often forget about is just the game itself. So, I mean, it's absolutely true. If you modify a small-sided game and use, again, constraints or adaptations to bring out the things that you want in the players play. They don't know they're being coached. They're just solving problems. And they're learning to solve those problems by doing it, and we know that retains the effect in match play. The other thing that came out of this whole study for me was the absolute complexity of football learning by young people, young boys and girls. The complexity of their physiological systems, of their central nervous systems. We used to say repetition. And then they do the skill, repetition. They got it on the training ground, get in the game, nothing. All right, it didn't carry over. Why? Because football, as we love, is complex. 360 degrees. It's always changing. The vision, the movement, the picture, if you will. And these kids, again, another. Sorry, I'm starting to preach. You know what I mean? I love it. I love talking about this stuff, about how to make players better, how to improve fun for kids, and get them playing soccer. So if you think about the number of bones, like the players, 260, 68, how many muscles they bring, how many small myofilaments portions of muscle, how many myofibers they're going to bring. Then we talk about the nerves. There's over 1 trillion billion nerves in a young person's body. Mature nerve cells and immature nerve cells. And what do? They take in information and they try to solve the issue in front of them and the problem. We only know this now because of MRI scans, and we have a greater understanding of how neural networks work to improve skill. So you take a complex individual like a young boy or girl, you put them in a complex environment like playing soccer, and they will figure it out. Now, I know what you're going to say. There's some kids, they'll never figure it out. I appreciate that. But we have to give this complex dynamical systems, if you want to use the scientific constraints-led term, try to let them solve these problems by giving them more football-like problems to solve. Yep. Bada beam, bada boom. How's that?
No, it's great. It's fantastic. Coach Parker?
Thank you, Rick. Vince, are we going to make the 4-page PDF available to the audience?
That's up. Rick, are we allowed to share that PDF that you sent me?
Yes, I just need to take off the Manchester United crest.
Okay.
They're okay with it, but I understand that they'll come from me. But I've got one. Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Yeah, I think I'm actually looking at the one that does not have the crest on it.
Okay, that's fine.
It looks like it's a supplement in a journal. Anyway, one of the things I was really interested in, Rick, when I was looking through it, because I remember this coming to our country or coming to America 15, 17 years ago. This was a hot topic because we were starting to introduce small-sided games here. We were getting tons of resistance. So this presentation is really, familiar. It's funny you say it seems like it was yesterday, because it really does. I couldn't believe it when I saw 2003. So one of the things I can share with the audience that have yet to see the information I've got in front of me, you collected comments from constituent groups. You collected them from soccer professionals, academy guys, parents, and then sort of what's the group you decide? Other observers. Yeah. Other observers universally positive. So somebody with no skin in the game, it seems. What I find really interesting, though, as I was looking at it, that your technical leaders, the academy directors, were about 4.5 to 1 favor, and the parents were reduced down to 2 to 1. Yeah. And I find it absolutely fascinating that probably the biggest impediment, or one of the biggest naysayers, with the parents, and of course the kid gets in the car with the parents, or sits across the breakfast table with the parents. So you've created this incredible environment. I've been at Everton before, where they have the parents roped off and all those things. Yeah. And yet the parents remain one of the greatest hurdles for these kind of initiatives. They remain. It's hard to criticize parents, but they do, in some respects, they do remain the biggest hurdle in youth football. I would go on to say. Now, I did those small group interviews with parents, so we would have 5 or 6 of the parents come up to Littleton Road, and I would ask them questions, and we did it in a group and stuff like that. And I think they expected Manchester United to be glitz and glamoury and glossy, and they were so proud of their son. At the time there wasn't a girls' team. They were so proud, and they felt a little bit let down. They wanted, that's like I said before, they wanted the spectacle of Man United Liverpool when the kids were 8 to 9 years old. And, too many coaches, and I've seen this in America too often, they give in to the parents. They give in. And we for the sake of the learning environment, it's not always the best thing to do. So that was the main issue, that it was Manchester United. We came here expecting to be, top of the tree, and you're putting our son in, a game with no goals and things like that. I understand it. They love.
parents love their children and they want to show their love for their child, but sometimes they try to comment on things they really don't know about. I can't say it any other way. And I do respect I'm a parent. My girls played soccer, football, and I understand. But does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Ian?
no, I think it's very consistent with some of the challenges I think some of our more enlightened and informed coaches have here. They try to make decisions which they deem to be in the best interest of the consumer, the kid, but the customer is often the parent. One of the other things that I looked when I was looking at it, it struck a chord with me, but you mentioned it in your presentation, how coaches fail to remember they have this wonderful tool, which is the game itself.
Absolutely.
When I look at the negative, and it's way proportioned to the positive, but where the coaches have challenges, and you read all of the things they say, they almost all relate to control. I don't have enough control.
Yeah.
And so I don't like it.
Well, what can I say? It's absolutely true. It is very difficult. And when we took this out into the grassroots game over a number of years, that was the biggest hurdle, was getting the coaches to just let it happen. Let it happen. They don't have to, you micromanage it. Okay. And I see this a lot too. You go, okay, we're going to do 3v3 with a rondo or whatever. Okay. 3 minutes later, we're on to something else. And I know the game's chaotic, but you have to give players time for their complex ecosystems to learn. That's another thing. But yes, the best, it's so much easier, right? I've been there. You're driving to practice, training. You're thinking, what the heck am I going to do tonight? Let them play a game and then constrain it, give them a bit, and just let it happen. That's what they need. That's the nature of the game. It's complex. And it's unlike most any other American sport. That's the other thing people really forget. It's really different approach. It's a different feel. It's different chaos. It's decision making that we don't do in I played baseball, basketball, and football my whole life, and this was like freedom when I came back to soccer. Absolutely.
Thank you. We've got some questions in the chat box.
Certainly the challenge of it being unlike many American sports, which is why I really like ice hockey, because there seems to be a much closer correlation in the way the game is formed.
Yeah.
But I also think the challenge is, and you see this, obviously, as you see everybody going to the tailgate of the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Minnesota Vikings, or we see images of Sir Alex or Jose Mourinho or Guardiola or whatever. And we tend to think that those 8 and 9-year-olds are in that type of elite, professional, result-driven industry.
Yeah.
We wouldn't expect that if we went to watch them as an 8-year-old in their English class. They wouldn't be doing Shakespeare. They'd be doing joined-up writing. But it's amazing how in sport we extrapolate a much higher model on them than we would in pretty much any other walk of childhood.
Well, this is what the Give Us Back Our Game was really fighting against. And in the end, we ended up changing policy of the FA. I'll be honest. It's exactly that, we're to be used really harsh terms. We're kind of adultification. We're putting adult values on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And one, they don't particularly want it. All the studies show that winning, is 7 or 8 down the list. They want to make friends, improve their skill, have fun. You've heard all this, but there seems to be it's an ongoing, constant battle. Every couple of years, we have to educate a new batch of parents about the same things. And we've been doing it for 30 years. We've been telling them, lay off, let it play, let it happen, give them fun. If they're having fun, they're going to come back. If they're going to come back, they're going to pay your fees. If they're going to come back, they're going to get better. So we had a lot of dropouts in the UK in the early, late 2007, 8, something like that. Kids were leaving the game in droves. We couldn't get referees because the referees were getting abused by the parents every Saturday and stuff like that. So change had to come. We helped along with that change to give us back our game. The FA went around the country and got their own opinions and did their own research, to their credit. And then we have what we have now, which is more formats. So, we made a difference. You can make a difference.
So it sounds like Vince has got pulled away by pet challenges at his house. There's a question from a colleague of ours, Ian, in Seattle, about the current format that Man United is practicing. I know Tom Statham is still part of the club, and are they still kind of working along this program is still in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one that they are still doing the 4v4 for the under 9 age group. Many of the other clubs didn't follow suit, and I can tell you the politics behind that. And there were politics in the sense that many of the other clubs at the time, teams could scout across the country, and there was fear from the other clubs that Manchester United had done this just so they could cast their net a lot wider. So that's now changed, but very few have actually taken it on for the long term. And the other thing I will say is that in training, Manchester United training for the unders, is pretty much fairly standardized. It's small-sided game based. They take a lot of time. There's a lot of video. They will pull the player to teach them, what they do, just like anybody else. But they won't do it in the games. They will not berate and they won't play the game for the players. This is another coaching point. I don't know about you, but when I was playing, if a coach was telling me I couldn't hear him anyway. Right. I was trying to concentrate on whatever. So they would wait till the halftime or the full time, and you don't want to play the game for the players. You want the players to learn to play for themselves. So you have to foster that. Children do not learn by accident. You have to teach them. The game will be the teacher, but you have to teach them the things or facilitate their learning. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. A couple of people in the chat box. We have a colleague, Amin, who lives and works in Virginia. He's originally from Iran.
Hi, Amin.
He talked about street soccer, and the way it was for him was they would look at the older kids and they would try to copy the skills they would see in the older kids and then practice in a free form. Colleague Chris has said that he's been to the Cliff with Tom Statham a number of years ago and got to see that, and said it completely reshaped his philosophy as a coach. Yeah. And interesting that we have a colleague, Casey, from Philadelphia, and his 11-year-old son, Alex, is in another room but comes to all of these with us. So Casey's got to be kind of a promise keeper now because his son has heard it. So I think Casey was on board anyway, but if he wasn't, he has to be now because the kid has the information.
Very good. I think, apart from that, we've talked about optimal learning environments, the complexity of learning and stuff like that. I guess the other thing I want to talk on is kind of the history of small-sided games and how it kind of started with Rinus Michels and the Dutch and Dutch Vision. Then it kind of came through the community programs to England, got into Manchester United. All the Dutch, influence still carried on, Rene and things like that. Then it went to Manchester United. Then it went to give us back our game in the grassroots. So, we have, and then we have the scientific side of it, which is the constraints-led theory, dynamical systems, appreciating the complexity of kids. And I think that's pretty much why we are where we are with small-sided games. Now, the $64,000 question is, how much of my training time should I spend with small-sided games, and how much should I train with repetition drills? And by all means, do not think that when I promote small-sided games, I'm saying you shouldn't do repetition drills. Okay, that's not the issue. Okay, it's all about specificity and overload. Okay, so you have to overload certain things to get the benefit. But I asked, my university is very big into skill acquisition and constraints theory and dynamical systems. And I asked them over a drink one night, okay, you tell me what would you recommend to British and American soccer coaches about the quantity of training. How much do they give over to small-sided games? How much do they give over to repetition of different types? And we went around the room, there were 5 of them. And the average of the 5 was basically 80-20 or 75-25. Constrained-led games.
Yeah.
Games that are creative, that do what you want the kids to do 75% of the time. 25% of the time, repetition, fitness, blah, 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 blah. And again, it's I could talk all night. Like I said, on the fitness side, combine the training with football skills. It's if it doesn't look like football, it ain't football. Okay. Yes, there will be some transferability, some crossover between being in the weight room. But wouldn't it be better if you did it in the weight room and then played 10 minutes of small-sided, then go back to the weight room and then play small-sided, firing the right neurons and things like this? Okay, I need another question from you guys.
You're preaching to the choir. So great.
To that, Rick, is one of the things that our coaches don't have it's very much in our American culture, is they can't always be aware of what the kids are doing outside of the 2 75-minute training sessions a week with the coach.
Yeah.
So if we have a high degree of certainty that we've got kids playing pickup in the backyard, dropping down a couple of sweaters, a lot of that game practice is occurring, right?
Absolutely. And I've got an idea for you. And I think the associations that are listening, the association should be putting on low-cost, organized pickup games, pickup days. Okay, kids no longer go and get into teams and play. They need some help. Okay, low cost, come and play. We'll put you into teams. We'll let you play the Manchester United 4v4 games. You'll learn different skills, not even know about it. Have a lot of fun, and I things like that would go a long way, I think, to getting them playing again. I'm sure the same with you guys. You go past the soccer field, you see too many kids just standing around, and it just breaks my heart. I'm thinking, why what are you doing? Anyway, I think I'm pretty.
No, it's great.
So you have the right audience here.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know.
Rick, if you have time, there's one more question in the chat box, and then we'll let you go. It's from Karen Kelzer. Who is in Virginia. I believe she's in Virginia. So I don't know if you're familiar with the training methodology here for our grassroots. It's called play, practice, play.
Yep.
So it's more whole part whole, if you will, a little bit.
Yeah.
Where it's you come and you play. There's a break. At the break, you give them a question, but they don't answer it. So you might say, or give them like a thought. So when you go back out to play again, see if you can find an opening, right, and get through that opening. Okay, just go play. Come back, and then they kind of reflect on it.
Yeah.
And then the next stage is practice, right, where they might do they call it a core activity.
Okay.
And then they go either easier or harder, based on what they're seeing, and then they go back into play.
Okay.
And in the play, there's a halftime, and they let the kids reflect and all that. So that's the current methodology. Karen's question is, so that type of methodology versus the simple to complex, and what's happening there. So
what do I think of it?
Yeah.
I mean, from just listening to it, it satisfies all the things we're talking about here, and maybe even the percentages of 66 to 33% or something like that. So I would say on the without even really seeing the kids play, yes, I like it. It depends what you do in that 33-minute pressure time. And I would probably turn it around to your listener. What does she think about it?
Yeah.
Does she feel like she's getting better? Does she feel like it's fun? Does she feel engaged? Does she feel like she wants to come back and play again? So those are what we should really be asking.
Yeah.
Now I'll be the first to say also that for a coach to assess a player's development, you know how you get your, I don't know, your coaching manual and it says what are your learning outcomes for the day, and so you're going to do this, and oh yes, I hit that. No, you didn't hit that learning outcome. It's probably impossible to hit that learning outcome fully. So it's very difficult for coaches they have to look at their players as they play. They have to get to know them intrinsically and see those little changes, because learning doesn't happen in a linear fashion. It's non-linear. It goes through fits and starts, goes backwards. You get better, you get worse this week. You're not, all those things. It's not simple. It's complex, but it's amazing. That's why we love it.
Yeah. Well, Parker, go ahead.
I'll let Vince wrap it up, but just so you're aware, you might want to turn your email off, because you're going to get an invite to coaches from Delaware, the program, the postgraduate certificate, and the coaches from Ohio University, and you're going to get asked to present in the Anaheim convention, which unfortunately for you will be conducted from Seven Oaks, because we're not going to Anaheim. None of us are going.
I've never been to California, and I was looking forward to going, but there you go. It'd be my pleasure.
Okay, look forward to that invite. Really fascinating stuff. It's really nice to meet the man that authored the report, because it is legendary report in our world. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate your words. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and love your perspective on it, and I have that book. I remember I was the state director of coaching for Indiana, and I was campaigning for us to buy this book for our youth modules.
There you go.
Unfortunately, we didn't have the budget. So, no, thank you so much. It was fantastic, and thank you for sharing your time and talents.
I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody out there, and go USA.
Yeah, stay safe, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.